Welcome to episode 175 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I speak to award-winning Liverpudlian pop singer-songwriter Banners, also known as Michael Nelson. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to Neil Finn and Nick Seymour from Crowded House about their new album, Gravity Stirs. So check it out, and if you like the podcast, please subscribe on your favourite listening platform, give us a rating, and leave a comment. Banners is known for his effervescent melodies and immensely relatable lyrics about the human condition. With his latest album, All Back to Mine, it's safe to say he owns a market share in feel-good anthems streamlined to soundtrack your best life. In this interview, Michael Nelson discusses the writing and recording of the album. We also discuss his favourite Banners songs, songwriting, his love for Liverpool, and lots more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Michael Nelson from Banners. So hi Michael, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Hello mate, thanks for having me. How are you?
Very good, very good. It's great to have you. I'd like to go back to the start.
Yeah.
Can you remember the first band or artist that made you pay attention to music?
Well, I've got sort of two. One, so my dad bought me and my sister Hunky Dory by David Bowie. And I remember it quite clearly being, this is yours. Like, I've bought this for you and you should listen to this. I don't know how old you were, like 6 or something. Mm-hmm. So it was what was always on in the car. Because it was like, well, this is our album, so we'll listen to the album that we've been told to listen to. And obviously it's amazing. But I always wonder if he sort of did it just so then if anyone ever asked, you know, when I was an adult, what was the first album that you owned? I always wonder if my dad just did it to be like, here is your first album and there is the answer. But I think the first one that I bought with my own money that I think I got, maybe I had a HMV voucher, I think, for Christmas, was The Best of the Lightning Seeds. And I think I bought it because the front cover of that is the singer Ian sort of riding, like he's like surfing a wave, but the wave is on the River Mersey. So like the Live buildings are in the background. It's a great album cover. But yeah, it was sort of those two, I think. And to be fair, I go back to Lightning Seeds sometimes and think, oh, some of these songs are actually really good, you know?
Yeah.
Band.
No, they're all belters. They are.
Yeah.
And the Lightning Seeds are the sort of band, you know, you don't know how many songs you know until you hear them. That's Lightning Seeds, you know.
Totally. And they're all like, I don't know, you can get a bit, you know, when you work as a songwriter, you can get a bit like obnoxious about it. Do you know what I mean? When you're a bit like, oh yeah, actually, it's a technically great pop song. Do you know what I mean? But actually, they all are. They're such great pop songs. There's a reason they were a really popular band.
Yeah. What age were you when you first started hearing songs and melodies in your head?
Yeah, well, I my thing is a little bit weird because I think when I was like 6, there was just a nativity play in school. Do you call it a nativity play in Ireland as well?
Yeah.
So they just needed people, you know, they were just giving everyone their little roles and stuff like that, being shepherds and sheep and all that stuff. And they needed, like, for some reason, the music teacher had come up with like a solo that the ox was going to sing. I don't know if there's normally an ox in this stuff, but anyway. So everyone in my class just had a little go of singing, and then I just did it, and I'm saying I didn't know I could sing. It was a 6-year-old's version of singing, but I could obviously hold some sort of tune, you know. So I just did that, and so that was genuinely my first ever live performance. But my parents were saying, like, when that thing happened, they were just like, we just didn't know that you could do that, you know? And I suppose you just don't think of it, do you? And then you go, okay, go on, I'll sing that. So I think it was like there was some sort of little bit of musicality in me, I suppose, at that age. And then from there, the music teacher said that I should audition for the cathedral choir in Liverpool. So we have two cathedrals here, a Catholic one and a Anglican one. So I auditioned to be in the Anglican choir. And then from then on, I got in. So from about 7, I think I was, you're just doing a lot of singing. Obviously, you're learning these songs. It's sort of fun that you're 7, but you're learning songs from the 1500s and all that stuff, So I have this very privileged experience from a really young age of here are melodies, here are melodies, and there is only one right way to do this and all the other ways are wrong. So you learn how it all works a little bit, really. So I suppose that was my introduction to music, I think. And I guess everything is just built from there.
So when was the moment that you thought, right, this is what I want to do as a career? Or did you have other ambitions?
No, not all. I can remember the exact moment, actually. I would say, so my dad, again, this is an incredible privilege, really. My dad is a record producer. But when I was growing up, he was an engineer in a recording studio in Liverpool, just in the city centre. So I don't know if you've been to Liverpool, but it's not massive. Everything is pretty connected. But with it being the city centre, it was really easy just to drop in. And so we just used to drop in, especially because he would work very late, like you do. And so we just kind of sometimes go around after school to say hi. And I went in there. So I used to spend quite a lot of time in there, but I never really considered what was going on, I think, until I was about 10 or 11, maybe. And I was stood in the control room with him, where the desk is and all that stuff. And there was a song playing that they'd been recording that day. And I'm not sure how much time you spent in recording studios, but like you get to listen to music far louder and at a far higher fidelity than anywhere outside of there. So when you're a kid, it's just this like incredible explosion of experience, when they hit play. And then he like soloed just like a stereo channel of guitars. So it went from this great big, massive sound to then just the acoustic guitar playing, which I just never thought. You just don't think how music goes together at that age. And I just remember thinking, what's just happened? Like, that's a thing. And then I can remember it really clearly. I can remember my angle of the studio. And I just remember thinking, right, well, I have to be in here now. Like, this is where I am now. And I just couldn't get enough of being in there, especially because it's probably a little different now, but they used to smell very smoky. But even that smell is very evocative to me, and the smell of the wood of the floors, and then the bands that were just in there, I just thought were the coolest people I could possibly imagine. This like little, the togetherness that you'd have in a band, and then just they were these unbelievably cool people that I just couldn't imagine. I just wanted to be part of that, even if it was making cups of tea or anything like that, which I did for a while and stuff. Great.
Can you remember some of the bands that went through the studio?
Yeah, the first one I can really remember was Gomez. Do you remember Gomez?
Oh yeah, Bring It On.
Yeah, so good. Like that album, the first and second albums, my dad engineered those two. So that was the first time I remember thinking, you guys are so grown up and cool, and like you're just doing this, but you, like I say, you're this particular type of mates that have experienced all this stuff together, and I think they're the first ones I can remember being in there.
Yeah, I remember those first two albums actually very well.
So great, and they still they sound so great now. Still, it's actually brilliant that something like that was genuinely popular too. Because they really were, weren't they? The first,
the first album on a Mercury.
Yeah, and the second one got to number 2 in the album charts, and it was going to be number 1 in the week. And then Shania Twain sold loads on the Friday. So it was so close to being number 1. But either way, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, the track on the second album, We Haven't Turned Around, is one of my favorite songs of theirs. It's
Magic.
amazing.
Yeah, totally.
Getting back to you, you're back in your hometown of Liverpool after spending quite a lot of time in Canada. You went there to get your career going, and I have to say, you did all right. So a lot of people would maybe choose to go to London, maybe choose to go to LA or New York. Why did you choose to go to Canada?
I think you with any of this stuff, I think you just have to take opportunities as they come, don't you? I think that the whole, like, trying to have a career in music is really tricky, because it's just almost impossible to navigate any sort of course through it, you know. So I'm not even sure you could write down a master plan and then work it out anyway, because you're right, like, Toronto is actually great for music, but if you were choosing, you might even stay in Liverpool,
Yeah.
you know. But certainly, like you say, London or LA. I just knew I'd worked as an assistant on an album in Canada once, just in the middle of nowhere there, and I kept in touch with a lot of the session musicians. So one of them, my friend Milos, I kept in touch with him, and he just asked if I wanted to come over and do some songwriting with him once in Toronto. Absolutely nothing was going on for me at all in music. I was just like trying to write songs, not very well, and I was trying to do open mic nights, again, not very well. And it's hard at that point, because how do you get people to listen to you? I don't really know. Like, what plans do you put in place, really? Yeah, I just went over there once. I think I had like the cost of a flight in my bank account, basically, and that was pretty much it. I say that, I must have had a little bit extra, but not very much to pay for food. And you know, Milos is amazing, and his career is actually going really well now. But it wasn't at the time. It wasn't like this was a huge opportunity. It was just something, you know. And if there's anyone out there who wants to get into music or any of that, like, my main piece of advice, or anything that they want to do, my main piece of advice is just don't overthink it. Take opportunities when they come, and don't think too much. Don't try to like justify if it's a big opportunity, or maybe this one's too small, so I won't bother. Just take them and see where they go, you know.
Yeah, because everything happens for a reason, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, this is all I've ever wanted to do with my life, and I really would love to be able to give people advice on how to do it. And if anyone ever wants to chat about it, I'm always really up for it. But if anyone tells you this is how you do it, they're just making it up, because you know, all you can do is try your best, can't you? And take opportunities when they come, and be somebody that people might invite into their house. Be somebody that people want to hang out with, you know.
Yeah, good points. Well, as I said, you've done all right, because you're about to release your new album, All Back to Mine, very soon. Did you go into this album with any preconceived ideas, how you wanted it to sound and the kind of songs you wanted to write about?
Not really. I mean, for me, like, obviously coming back to Liverpool was such a big. It just is such a huge change in your life. It obviously, like, physically, but also emotionally and all that stuff. I'm so grateful to Toronto. Like, they've given me everything, really. It just got to a point in the pandemic where it's like, because I did the pandemic on my own, you know, and as many people did, and it just got a little bit too far away from home in the end, you know. So I came back here, and then I think, yeah, in terms of like, I didn't have like a narrative concept to go into it with, but what I did really want to do, and this is where it's a real privilege when you get a little further along with things and you get to sort of dictate it slightly, is that I just wanted to do it with people that I really liked. I just wanted to be in the studio and to write songs with my friends, basically, and just see where that goes, you know, and see what would happen. What happens if you just try to be as happy as you can on a day-to-day basis, and then you make music? Because my experience of making music, it's just very easy to like always be worrying about the next thing, to the extent that you forget to enjoy the moment, you know, like you're always just thinking, like there were times where, you know, you get like a gold record or something like that, which is just a dream come true. But as it's happening, you're thinking, oh yeah, but it's I need to do the next thing. And at no point do you go, hang on a minute, this is amazing. So I think moving back to Liverpool helps me to like just live in that moment a little bit, and certainly in terms of making music, definitely. Like I just had a bit of a revelation where I thought like this might not last forever for me, you know, because we just don't know, do we? You don't know what will happen, and even when it doesn't last forever and I'm doing a job that I would rather not be doing, I don't want to look back on right now, this moment talking to you, and think you didn't enjoy that enough while it was happening, you know? So I know that people say live in the moment, and I know that it's the most boring thing in the world to hear, but that's just sort of my version of it a little bit, of just going, you're all right, you've got your dream job, do it with your friends, and whatever else happens is a bonus, you know?
Yeah, you hear a lot of artists and bands saying that, you know, looking back, I wish it took more of it in at the time. And then when they're back, you know, they have a resurgence or whatever, and they're saying, you know, we're really taking it in now and appreciating it. Totally.
You know, and we're just not, we're made to be like worried about the future, aren't we? Unfortunately, it's a bit of a human condition, and it's very understandable, especially when you've got like a mortgage and it's all based entirely on the public going, yes, okay, we'll listen to that. You know, so it's easy to feel like there's not much ground beneath your feet, but I suppose the longer you go with it, the more you just try to relax into it somehow, I guess.
Well, you said you recorded some of the album in Liverpool, but you also recorded some of it on the Scottish Isle of Lewis. You know, that must have been an amazing experience, you know, recording somewhere so remote.
It was just brilliant. So I at this point I didn't have a producer. I was sort of trying to figure out who to work with. So I went and met a guy called Cam Blackwood, who is amazing. He's an amazing producer. He is his biggest thing is probably George Ezra. He did George Ezra's first two things, so that was his big kind of break. And I went down and met Cam, and I liked him so much. And I was sort of saying to him, it'd just be great to like go out, you know, to get out of a city and just try to do some recording, not in a recording studio. So he just found a place as far away as he could possibly manage, basically. And like I say, I felt so comfortable and relaxed, and I liked Cam so much. You know, I think you just get a sense of people. You just get a sense of their soul and their spirit is this like very kind energy, you know, and that I was like, literally after one meeting, yeah, I'll go to the absolute middle of nowhere with you, and we'll hang out for 2 weeks and we'll do this thing. Oh, it's a great, I mean, I keep using the word privilege, but it genuinely is such a privilege, all of this stuff. Like, it's an amazing thing. And to get, even to get to go to a place like that was magic, but to get to go to a recording studio and record my own songs on the far west coast there, right by the Atlantic, you know, it was amazing. Yeah.
It sounds to me that you sort of would have been living sort of very basic. Was it like that, or was it pretty modern, you know?
No, so it's a studio. If anyone is interested in recording for themselves, it's a studio called Black Bay Studios, and they have somehow, I think that they are real obsessives over equipment and making this place making it not a novelty, basically making it a genuinely world-class recording studio, as opposed to just come here and be by the Atlantic and we'll plug a microphone in and see what happens. You know, the equipment they have there is amazing. So no, it wasn't rudimentary at all. I suppose I'm trying to think. I suppose to that point at the time, I guess maybe like the bedrooms were slightly more rudimentary than the studio because the studio was so great, but not really, you know, other than the fact that you're on the wet and windy Atlantic there. But yeah. But I recommend anyone. I do think it's ultimately, if you want to make music about your experiences, you have to go and have some experiences, don't you? So
yeah.
So totally worth doing. I mean, I might be imagining it, but I feel like you can hear the love that goes into this stuff. You know, I think it's important with music that you sort of encode its DNA with. It has to mean something to you, I think. And once you put that meaning in there, and you work really hard. I think humans have this ability to hear that. I don't know how that works, but I really think that.
Well, there's so many great songs on the album. Let's talk about some of the ones that I really like. You know, I think
cool.
we'll start off probably with my favorite one, "In Your Universe." I really enjoyed that there track. What can you tell me about the genesis of that?
I'm really glad you like that one, because I really like that one. That's the one that I enjoyed playing the most. I would say from the album, it's the one that I really like, especially playing live. We're going on tour in a month, so I really love playing that one. Mm-hmm. That one somehow, and I know no one wants to hear about this anymore, but that was over Zoom. That was at the very, very start of the pandemic, when there was a real moment. I know this is true of many industries, but obviously my experience of that was there was a moment where everyone was kind of like, are we just done now? Like, is there a future for us? You know, because can any of us, we don't know how long this is going to go on for, and can any of us afford to stop? Nearly everyone is self-employed, aren't they, in music? And so there was a real thing there of, I don't know what's going to happen, because so much of songwriting, it is actually songwriting sessions with people. I mean, I think there's a small amount of people that manage to write songs just on their own, but actually the whole lifeblood of it is sessions. So that was definitely a thing, but quite quickly people were like, well, there's this thing called Zoom and it seems to be doable. So everyone got on there, and In Universe was, I think, the first song that I wrote, with my friends Todd and Jason and Carly. They're all in Nashville, so we wrote that song over Zoom. So as much as I love it as a song, and I really do, it was also, there was a real relief of, okay, it's possible to do something here. You know, we can carry on. It won't be perfect, but we can do it. So I personally think that song is a bit of a miracle, because I sort of think to write anything over Zoom is a minor miracle, but to get something that you actually really like, oh God, it was amazing. And I just happen to be, you know, I'm very lucky in that I get to work with people that are really good, really talented songwriters as well. So that song was improbably written over Zoom, basically. I just don't think it sounds like it somehow.
No.
Yeah, which is great.
Best View in Liverpool. I love that song. You know, in the song you sing, the best view in Liverpool is everywhere you are.
Yeah.
So what can you tell me about that?
Well, I think some songs, obviously, you can sort of judge their worth to an extent, or if they fulfill their goal in life, if they do a certain number of streams or a certain number of sales or whatever, you know, or whatever sort of financial metric there is. Because ultimately a record label works with you because they want to make money. That's why they exist, and that's absolutely fine. And some songs are for that, and some songs are just a bit more, this one is just for me, and this one is just for, you know, my granddad, who I'll be seeing later at the match, or my uncle, or whatever, or just the people that I know here, you know. So to that extent, you know, it got played at Anfield, and it got played over like an awesome LFC. It was on the LFC channel, and they made like an awesome montage of just great Liverpool stuff, you know, Mo Salah scoring and all this stuff. And so to that extent, it's just already fulfilled. It's the reason it exists, you know, which is great, because it's not ever really gonna. I tried to make music that's as accessible as possible, but I can't imagine that one is going to be particularly accessible to somebody on the other side of the world, you know. So yeah, I think I suppose it did end up a bit of a love letter to the city, but also to the people, to the people, my friends and my girlfriend here and my parents. Like, there are many great views in Liverpool, and actually there's a hill that I've run up, which is just I just run up because it's steep, but it's not very far, so I can do a run that's horrible in like half an hour or something. So that is actually an amazing view. And I was just sort of thinking about how, like, well, this might be the best view in Liverpool, but then I thought, the best one is just the people that you're with, isn't it? Like, anywhere. And I think that's true of absolutely anywhere. That's what makes a city, isn't it? It's not the buildings or the geography, it's just the people that are in it. So I suppose that was the whole point.
They say it's hard to write a joyful song, but you seem to have mastered it. What's your secret?
Well, I think I genuinely think you have to just find joy in things. Ultimately, I don't know how long this state of mind could possibly last for, because I have found I do think moving away from home has so many positives to it. It's so important to do. I think it clearly broadens your mind in so many ways. It makes you realize that we're ultimately all just the same thing. The idea that one race of people is one thing, or even one country of people all think one way. Everyone is cool when you meet people in real life. And I think going to other cities and being welcomed in like that is just an amazing experience. But one of the reasons it's amazing is you get to come back again, and you get to realize that all the things that you took for granted when you hadn't left, you don't take them for granted anymore. They're back. You have them, but you have them so materially and so constantly, so I feel really grateful for that, but I'm so grateful that I just get to appreciate it a little bit as well. I would, if I heard someone say that in a podcast or an interview, I would want to kill them. So I'm really sorry about that. But I just at the moment have my dream job, and I get to do it with my friends. The thing I think about quite a lot is like the season ticket renewal for Liverpool was it started yesterday, and I will renew my season ticket, and I will pay for that by making music, which makes me the luckiest person on the planet. So I've just been trying to really think, to just live in that as much as I possibly can. And I think maybe that's why this music has happened. Because I suppose an album is just it's a snapshot of your life in that moment, isn't it? And this album will be, in 10 years' time, will be a time capsule for me, and I'll listen to it and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's what was going on. That's how you were feeling. That's the great thing about an album when you make that thing.
What song on the album do you feel most connected to?
I'm trying to think what's on there. Yeah, I mean, there's a few. There's one called All That You Made Me, it's called, and that's another one which really exists for quite a specific reason. I think, like, it was just a bit of a song for my mum, basically. And I don't know what it's like where you're from in Belfast, but here we're quite it's such a working class city that I think sometimes you can be a bit rubbish with like expressing your feelings one-on-one to a person and just saying, I love you and thank you for everything. You know what I mean? I don't know if we get brought up to do that really. And I'm not particularly good at it, but for some reason...
Neither am I.
No, well, it's hard, isn't it? And to some extent, I do really like that. I do like that sort of, we're just going to get on with it and just get it done. I think that can be very positive, but from a mental health perspective, I hope that we're generally getting a little better as a culture with talking, and it's not a thing that men are particularly great at, is it? And I think that the more that we do it, the better that is. So I'm trying to be a bit better. But I played the song to my mum, and it just meant the world tour, I think. So again, it's another one of those songs where like I would really love it if people liked it, and all that stuff. But it's already fulfilled its purpose, I think. Just that it just exists for my mum, really. So yeah, I suppose I do connect to that one. That one, I'd never done this before, but my friend Ollie is a really great piano player, and I'm a perfectly passable singer. So we just thought instead of recording loads of takes and really obsessing over like each individual vowel or consonant, which you can do in modern music, can't you? It's so easy to edit things that you can really you can take out any of the special bits sometimes, I think, by homogenizing it or whatever. So we just thought we'll just record this live completely. Ollie will play the piano and I'll sing, and we'll do it 5 times and we'll just pick the best one. So it's quite nice, that one, because it has imperfections to it, you know, that if editing it was possible, we probably would have edited, but it wasn't an option. So it just is what it is. And it was really nice experience doing that.
Yeah, it's a great track. It's nice to know that. It's nice to know.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it's funny when you record something live like that and you're committed to, we're just taking the best take. I think that song's about 2.5 minutes long, and you get to about 2 minutes in and you think, I haven't messed this up. Like, this is good. I haven't messed this up. And then the pressure to not mess up that last half a minute is so overwhelming. You just think, I managed to get through one of them at least. So that's the one we got.
I must talk about Someone to You. You know, yes. It's staggering. 700, nearly 750 million streams on Spotify alone. I mean, that's mad. How can you begin to comprehend that?
You can't really. I can't. I think, like I say, I think I'm perfectly fine at doing music, and I try really hard. But I know a lot of people that are a lot more talented at it than I am. So obviously feeling like an imposter is a constant thing. I would say it's a battle, but it's not really a battle. It's just there, you know, because you think, well, I'm not that special, so why should the special thing happen? So you think, well, it must just be that I haven't been found out yet or something. I think I've stopped trying to figure out that one a little bit. And because, like I say, I think it's about, 815 million on Spotify.
Oh, right.
Which I can't even imagine a million. Like, I can't even picture how many of one single thing a million is. So then to be like, well, it's not miles away from a billion. There's no point in trying to think about it. I think a little bit like when you look up at the stars and try to figure that out, and you just think, you know what, I don't know how that happened, and I don't know how to do it again. I don't think I can.
What do you remember about writing that?
Well, that one was for a song that sounds very. It's a very up-tempo song, and if you listen to just the melodies and the production, you would think it's just a happy song. But actually, if you listen to it, it's very desperate. The lyrics are very desperate, which I didn't even realize at the time. It was only like when things started to pick up with it, and I was listening to it thinking, what is it about this one? But it's very weirdly existential, you know. It's sort of saying, I don't want to die or fade away. I just want to be someone. I think that's a pretty universal concept. I wrote it in LA. I signed to Island Records in New York, and then I think one of the things, I only had 5 songs in the world, and none of them were even out yet. So I really was at the very start of everything. And I think one of the things that they often do is they set you up with a lot of songwriters, and you go out and you do I was there for 5 weeks. So I went out and it was like, I think maybe there was 2 days off in that time, but it was pretty intense. And I didn't know LA at the time. So I didn't really know, I didn't know where you should stay. You shouldn't stay where I stayed. And you shouldn't just rely on Ubers, because you'll just feel car sick the entire time. and I didn't know anyone, and I certainly didn't know who I was or what I wanted to say or even what I really sounded like. And I was going in with a lot of songwriters who were very successful, and I wasn't. So you're just in these sessions kind of thinking, well, I'll just shut up, because anything I say will be rubbish and anything they say will be brilliant. So if I say something, it might stop them saying a brilliant thing, so I'll just shut up. Mm-hmm. But that's the last thing that songwriters want. Like they want you to be you, and they can just help you do that. It was also the first time that I'd ever had a publisher and a record label and a manager and a lawyer and a booking agent, and all this stuff. So I had no experience of trying to write songs when you're going to get a text about 3:00 saying, hey, how's the session going? Is there anything we can hear? That pressure on you, and you start the songwriting session, or I did, because I wasn't very good at it. You start and you think, this isn't going well, and I'm going to get another rubbish thing, and they're going to text me, and they're all going to be thinking, oh, we shouldn't have signed this guy, and all this stuff. It's quite a pressure cooker environment to try to write songs, really. And also, I didn't, a songwriting session is so strange. You turn up, and it's like, all right, I'm Mike. And they're like, right, what are your innermost feelings? It's a tricky thing. Or even just singing nonsense. You have to just sing a load of nonsense to get melodies. And it takes a while to learn that everything's going to be okay when you do that. We just don't do that, do we? So it was a very lonely 5 weeks, to be honest. It was very hard. So I did 30 sessions, and it wasn't even that I wasn't getting songs. I wasn't getting good songs. I wasn't getting anything. I was barely getting something that you could have it as an MP3 to then send to anyone. And I had one more session to go, and I remember talking to my girlfriend at the time, and I was saying, I would just come home now if I could. If it wouldn't be really rude to do, I would be like, I'd just get on the plane now and come back, because it was genuinely horrible. I really like LA now, and I know a lot of people there, and it's great, but it's probably the loneliest place I could imagine if you are feeling all those things. But I went to the session, and I couldn't be bothered being in Ubers anymore, so I walked to it. It was like a 2-hour walk, and I thought of the title on the way, or the concept I thought on the way, and then I turned up, and it was with a guy called Sam Hollander, who is just an incredible songwriter. He's unbelievably successful, but he's also just an awesome dude, basically. So I turned up to his studio. He just has wall to wall. When I say wall to wall, there was no gap between the platinum records. Like, there was no space. It was just... and I turned up, and I was like, well, I've had this idea for a song, and I thought they were just going to go, obviously you can't do that, that's already a thing. But they were just like, yeah, great. So we just did that, and I felt really confident with just throwing out ideas and melodies. I think that's just one of Sam's great talents, that he gets that out of people. So for me, it was such a lesson of, okay, even if things are awful and you want to go home, just do it all the way to the end and see. And also go for a big long walk, because I think that gets your brain going. And I think if I hadn't done that walk, I think, and I was in an Uber, then I think maybe an Uber driver would have been talking to me about their inevitably acting career, which is generally the vibe in LA with the Uber drivers, and I probably wouldn't have had time to think and all that stuff. So I'm really grateful to all the bits. But I do think you can hear that loneliness and desperation in there.
Yeah, but that's good, isn't it?
Yeah, I think at least it was how I was feeling. At least I think it was possibly the first time that I wasn't trying to write a song I thought the record label would like. I was just like, I'll just do what I'm feeling, I think. And that's been a huge lesson to me, really. At the same time, I just got lucky. I probably can't do it again, but I'm grateful that I managed to do it that once.
It just fell out of the sky that day.
Yeah, I think inspiration happens like that. I don't think it happens the way people would romantically like it too. Songwriting inspiration, I think people would love to think, oh, you're just walking around and you just in Tesco and then a song happens and you know, I think maybe if you're Paul McCartney, that happens. But actually it only happens if you do the 30 days of grinding it out. You know, it's a lot like a muscle. Mm-hmm. It's like working it out in the gym. The more you do that, the more it gets stronger. Only then will inspiration happen if that muscle is strong enough. Ultimately, it's just a grind. It's just work, and then you hopefully put yourself in a position where it can just fall on you, I suppose. I probably wouldn't have written that song if I had that session with Sam at the very start, because the muscle probably wasn't strong enough at that point, I don't think.
Yeah, I think the first time I seen it was on YouTube when you performed it on American Idol.
Yeah, which is an odd experience in of itself, really. I have to say that would be very tough to be on a show like that. There's so much pressure on these kids, you know, and they're so talented, all of them, and your sort of at least immediate future is so dependent on 1.5 minute thing, you know, it's over before you know it. Clearly, I wasn't relying on winning American Idol to have a bit of a career. You know, I sort of had one at that point, or at least something going on. So it was just a very fun experience. I felt for those guys because they're really going through it. That would be really tough.
Big time.
Yeah.
If people want to understand the music of Banners, what are the 5 songs they should listen to?
Oh, wow. So my favourite one by a mile is a song called Ghosts, which was the first song that I ever released as Banners. I actually released it as something else. The project was called Rains at the time. Rains,
yeah.
But then it just didn't get, which I don't know if you ever tried to name a band, or it is unbelievably tough to do, especially now because everyone has, even if you've got no followers or any music, people will have the TikTok or the Facebook profile or the Twitter one or the Instagram. Like everything's just taken. Yeah. So it takes a long time to come up with something that everyone's okay with, you know, that isn't offending this culture here or doesn't have this like connotations that you don't know about for this person over here. And I was trying to come up with a name whilst with a record label. So there was like 20 people that I'd never met all pitching in when it was horrible. And I sort of think band names, you know, they don't mean anything. Like they start to mean things when you get the branding and the songs. And then, you know, Elbow, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything, but Elbow are brilliant. So Elbow is a great name for a band. Same with Rage Against the Machine. If that band was rubbish, you're just like, that's the worst band name of all time. But Rage Against the Machine are so great. So it's a great band name, you know. But
even Oasis is a crap name. But you just get used to it, you know.
Yeah. Coldplay or Radiohead. Yeah. But those bands are all amazing, so it's just no problem. So it's hard when you don't have the music yet and all you are is a sentence or whatever. So it took me ages, came up with Rains. Fine, people seemed fine, and then I was sat down with my A&R guy Ireland, and he was like, bad news. It just hadn't got through the Ireland copyright computer. I don't know how that works, but I'm pleased with the one I've got now. I'm glad that it happened, but it was a bit devastating. So anyway, I released Ghosts and was the first one, and that one existed way before music was even a potential career, really. So it really is total heart. Like I wrote it for a girl once, which I mean, really, I think that's all music should be written for. So it's certainly it's the one song that has not been second thought. I don't have to try to get that through a record label or anything like that. It's just completely. It was the middle of the night on the piano in my dad's house, and I just wrote it. So it's really precious to me for that, but also because it was the first time when the producer, Stephen Kosminiuk, who's just an unbelievable producer, when he first did we worked on a production and he sent me the file and it sounded like that. And like suddenly I sounded like all of my, like, you know, it sounded like, oh my God, I could imagine people hearing this and liking it for the first time. And I just never imagined that would be a thing for me, that a song I wrote might do that. And it was like, so it's such an amazing experience for me, that one. I won't talk as much about the other four because that was a lot of.
No, it's a great track. I'm happy enough for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like Someone to You, obviously, it'd be mad for me to not do that one. Just because it makes people happy, and that's really what I want to do. You know, I just want to make people happy, and I think that one seems to do it for people. Let me think. There's a song called "Got It in You," which it just like it feels like it seems to help people based on when I speak to people after gigs and when they send me messages on Instagram. Sometimes I will play a gig and then I'll get back to my pedal board and someone will have left like a letter or something like that. I still have one in my guitar case because it's such a lovely thing of someone saying, this is what was happening in my life and this song really, really helped me, you know? And that's, I mean, of all of the privileges, that is the true greatest one. To feel like some sort of positive difference to somebody that you don't know or you didn't know, you know, it is just the best thing. And it's really what I'm addicted to now. It's what I like to do as far as I possibly can. So I would say that one definitely. I think like Shine a Light was a really special moment for me. I think it's a little grander in its scope. It's trying to be big, I think. And the cathedral that I sang in a lot, it's such a big building that every noise you make in there, even if you were to drop a chair or something, it's just the most epic version of that noise.
Is that the tall building or the tall cathedral you can see everywhere in Liverpool?
That's the one, yeah. So
I was in there last time.
Were you really? So it's huge, isn't it? And the reverb is so long in there, you know. And I feel like you can hear that in Shine a Light just because it's just bigger and obviously it's all falsetto, so you're singing a little bit like a choir boy in that one. And I suppose the other one is maybe Best View in Liverpool, just because I'm just a Liverpool boy, you know, so that rounds things off quite nicely, I suppose.
Liverpool has a very rich musical heritage. The city always produces amazing songwriters. There's been the Beatles, obviously, Ian McCulloch, John Parr, Michael Head, Ian Brodie, Dave McCabe, Jamie Webster, The Coral, The Farm. I could go on all day.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I mean, I suppose you could go back anthropologically, couldn't you, really, to specifically, I suppose, skiffle and rock and roll, and specifically that the docks are right there. So that music was just, you know, without American rock and roll, you just don't have the Beatles, do you, ultimately? So I think there's definitely that, but also from an anthropological perspective, like I say, those docks that I'm right next to here, I think it's 1.5 million Irish people came through them. It might even be more than that, you know, during the potato famine, and a lot of them then went on to America. A lot of them stayed here. I mean, if anywhere has music in their soul, it's Ireland, isn't it? It's just such I just think it just has its own thing, and I think we have really benefited from that, like that Irish blood effectively has come in, and at the, you know, and then whatever it will be a century or half a century later, we got the music on the boat. I also think there's something to being close to the sea. I just think there's always a horizon, and there's always something to aim for just beyond it. There's always the hope of a grasped thing, and that's ultimately what you're doing when you're writing songs, isn't it? I think. I do also think, you know, it's helpful in a culture when it rains a lot. I think a lot would not get the Smiths if it did not rain as much as it does in Manchester. You know, you also wouldn't get that sort of Oasis walk if they weren't trying to dodge as many puddles. That's a different thing. But so I think bad weather helps. we get slightly better weather than Manchester, which I think is why you get that style of music. I think our style of music's different to the Mancunian one, but I think that helps a lot. And I think, that there's just enough of it going around. I think it just becomes everywhere, doesn't it? So one of the things that is massively underrated about football, amongst all the rivalry and all that stuff, you go and then you just sing songs with tonight with 60,000 other people, and in our case at Liverpool, it's a lot of Irish songs with a lot of Irish roots. The fields of Anfield Road is the fields of Athenry and all that stuff. So they're very melodic. So even tonight, it'll just be there. It'll just be happening. There's the cathedral just there. There's all these, like you say, all these great songwriters just right here. I literally bumped into Dave McCabe the other day going into the practice room. It's just here. So I think, I don't, there's a great culture around Liverpool. There's also a great culture around Sheffield and Manchester. And do you know what I mean? I think ultimately one of the great things about human civilization is we always find a way to make music, don't we? Mm-hmm. We have it in our souls. We're born with it, I think. I really love the Liverpool version, but I don't think it's the only good one.
You'll be heading out on the road in May. So what can fans expect from the live shows? Well,
I've been working with my singing teacher today, Lorna. So hopefully better than ever vocals. Otherwise, it's a waste of money. But it's been a nice hang with Lorna anyway.
You'll get some practice tonight anyway, as you say.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I did not tell Lorna that I was going to the match tonight because I don't think she would necessarily... Because I can't... I love it there so much. And I sing the entire time. It's become a real... it just is a point of pride for me to always be singing. But... I lose my voice every time I go there. So I didn't tell Lorna this. So yeah, I don't think it'll be a great warm-up, but it's fine. One of the ace things about releasing new music is you just get to play with the dynamics within a set, because you now have whatever it is, 12 more songs that you can go, okay, maybe this song will be great here, or maybe we need something that's a little more down tempo. It's now an option to use here, I suppose. You just get to, I suppose, a live set, if you do it right, is just the greatest hits, isn't it? It's the song of yours that you think are the best. So I hope the music is better than it's ever been, and also trying to enjoy something while it's happening is something I've been really working on in the last few years. And playing live is its own, it can be quite stressful, and I'm quite a shy lad. So ultimately there's some places where there's 1,000 people looking at you or whatever. And it can be, you just want to do such a good job for everybody that you're just concentrating on getting it right. And it can be hard to just experience it as it's happening and to enjoy it while it's happening. So I'm going to really, really try to just enjoy it while it's happening, because I hope that, that makes for a better show. And I think if you're having a good time, I always think if you're a singer in a band and people come and see you live, it's a bit like a pilot. If you're on a plane and the pilot is clearly panicking, then you're not having a good time on that plane. But if everything seems good and everyone's having a nice time, then everyone will have a nice time.
I wouldn't be doing my job properly, Michael, if I didn't throw this pun into this next question.
Please.
If you're at the pub and afterwards you say to everyone, all back to mine.
Yeah.
What is the first record you put on?
It's a great question. I suppose if it's after the pub, then I'm probably a little bit drunk. So there's a few options there. Graceland by Paul Simon is one, just because you can call me Al. It's just a bit of one of those, a bit of an anthem with my friends, I suppose. Same with Shake It Off by Taylor Swift. So that album, 1989, would be pretty high up there. Well, it's just one of the greats, isn't it? I think with Taylor Swift, she's just so everywhere that you just take her for granted, the same way that you might take a tree for granted or something. But when you really stop and think about it, Taylor Swift is absolutely amazing. And I don't know how she manages to do this much stuff to this quality. I just don't even... I sort of imagine there must be about 3 Taylor Swifts, and like one of them's on tour and one of them is writing all these songs and one of them is re-recording all the albums she's already recorded. I don't know how she finds the time in the day to be that great. But I think 1989, I mean, it was my gateway into Taylor Swift. So probably I would say one of those two, Graceland or 1989.
Well, just leaving this one. If you could go back and relive one musical moment from your career so far, what would it be? I can tell you my favorite moment, the thing that I think it will just, like, I find it hard to tell it. I get a bit teary thinking about it. So, we played a venue called Scala, last year, the last time I played in London anyway, a year and a half ago maybe, which is a super cool place, and it's like maybe 900, 1,000 people, and it was brilliant. Like, it was one of those gigs. Sometimes in music, there are gigs that can feel like a cup final because there's a lot of pressure on them for many reasons. You know, this one, my record label were all going to be there, and my publisher, my manager had flown in from New York, and my producer, engineer, singing teacher was there. There was a bunch of people in the audience who, like, I really wanted to do, who I hadn't seen for such a long time, and I wanted to do such a good job for them. So there's a lot of, you just want it to go right, you know? And that gig, I just got out on stage and it was just singing well. Just sometimes you're singing well and you can just, a gig is such a two-way thing in a way that I'm not sure people realize, but you can feel the energy of an audience. Mm-hmm. And when you feel that, you can give it back, and then it becomes this cyclical thing. Mm-hmm. And it was just, that was happening, you know. Sometimes the contours of a venue are just right. It just is a great view to look out on, and everyone is there. And so my friend Sam, who's one of my oldest, best friends, was telling me a story about when he used to live in London, and he used to hand out flyers just outside Scala, you know, of other bands, I guess. He was just, you know, doing it to make ends meet, really. Mm. And he was telling me that he was out there in the rain and he was thinking to himself, oh, I'd give anything to be on the stage in there, you know. And then whatever it was, 10 years later, we were on the stage together in this place, and it was sold out. And I told the audience this story. And I love Sam. He's the greatest, and he's the most generous, kind fella who's helped out so many of us in so many ways. So I told everyone, I told them this story, and I said, so I'm going to count to 3. And on 3, I want you all to go crazier than you've ever gone. So I said, count to 3, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, Sam Walker down. And they went wild. Like, it was like the loudest noise I've ever heard. It was this like crazy, like, and Sam just had this moment. He just waved to everybody in the balcony, and then, oh man. And it was just the best thing. And I will never forget the view of him just there next to me, and all of those people that was so lovely enough to go along with it for me and do this thing for us. Just magic. And it's just what it's all about, I think. You know, that mm-hmm. doing this with people that you really care about, to people that are just awesome. And I really think if you want to have a positive view of humanity, be in a band and play music, because people are amazing, you know, and you meet so many people, and people don't want anything from you. They just want to say hello. They just want a photo, and they just want to say thanks sometimes, and stuff like that, you know. And you realize, oh man, we're gonna be fine. That's a great story. So that's me done, Michael. Is there anything you would like to mention before we wrap up?
No, not at all. Yeah, thank you for having me. Thanks for having a chat. Thanks so much, mate. Have a great evening.
You too, mate. Up their heads.
Up their heads. See you, dude.
Take it easy.
See you, mate.